Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Big Fitness Podcast. I'm here with Clifton Harski. Dude, thanks for coming to the show, brother. That's awesome. So I kind of came across you at a fitness seminar a ways back, and you had a lot of really awesome things to say about functional training. And so I followed you, and I've been kind of paying attention to what you've been up to. And we're functional here at Big Fitness, so I think we have come up with a really awesome conversation about that. But just for everybody to know, you've been a trainer for 21 years. You're a Kettlebell Specialist. You're into that functional training, and you've taught over 450 fitness certifications.
I will say certs and workshops.
Certs and workshops. Got you. That's awesome. So let's get into that, man. So go ahead, introduce yourself. And then my first question for you is, why kettlebell?
Well, on the first question, they're fun. They're just really fun. And I can get more detail with the scientificals of how you can load with different force vectors, with pendulums, with accentuated eccentrics, and move in different planes more easily than other tools. But principally, I find them fun. And I think that's, if you remember my talk, that's one of the things I think is the most important for anybody's fitness journey, whether you're a S&C nerd or just a casual 2 times a week person. If it ain't fun and enjoyable, you ain't doing it.
No, totally, and I totally agree with that. And so what got you started? What inspired you to start training with kettlebell specifically?
So kettlebell specifically, I had a little boot camp. I called it booty camp because I was training people with outdoor weights, and it's fun to say booty camp. So this is in San Diego. I was a full-time manager at Trader Joe's, and I was on the side leading 3, 4, 5 group sessions a week in the Mission Bay Park. And I needed more tools because it was getting more popular. So I went to Sports Chalet, which is, RIP these days. And next to the medicine balls and light dumbbells and bands that I knew I was going to purchase, there was a kettlebell, something I did not know what it was, but I was like, this is neat. 45-pound Go Fit is the brand. I still own it, still my favorite one. And picked it up and started playing around with it and figured out that this was cool. Then a couple years later, I learned how to do it correctly in quotation marks, which made it less fun for about a year as I got really good at the way you're supposed to do it. And then I ignored that and had fun again. And that's kind of where I'm at now as far as having a little bit of a niche, if you will, within the kettlebell community of breaking the dogmatic rules that are generally associated with kettlebell training.
Yeah, and what are some of those dogmatic rules you're talking about?
So there are typically 2 camps of kettlebell training. You have hard style kettlebells. This is the Russian style Pavel, RKC, and Strong First. Both great companies and great organizations with really intelligent, good education. Then the other camp is sports style, and this is competitions where the goal is, can I do a lot of repetitions of a couple of exercises in 10 minutes? And so they're antithesis of each other. Hard style is make everything as hard and difficult as you can right away for a fitness result and a strength outcome result. Whereas sports style is make everything as efficient as possible because I need to last 10 minutes. So the less effort, energy that I put forth on every single rep, the better I will perform over time. And both of these, to point out the dogmatism in the best way possible, they both call each other wrong. And it's like, no, dummies, like you're trying to do 2 different things here.
Right, 100%.
So how the hell are they wrong when they're 2 different approaches?
There's a lot of that in fitness, I feel.
Oh man, it's wild. Yeah. And like while I've been fortunate to teach certs for 5 different companies, I think it is now. And across the board of the companies I've taught for, we've been good to be very open as to saying there's other ways to do this. Now there's other organizations I've taken certs from that are quite the opposite, where it's like, if you do it differently than this, and then not only are you dumb, you're a bad person and you're probably going to go to fitness hell.
Yeah, right. Which is like this, and there's like battles that are happening in these gyms, like based on these exact things you're talking about.
Yeah.
When it comes to like the hey, this approach is let's just go hard as we can, but not work on like the outside of the sports side of things. What is the best way in your mind that you should go? Because I find that you get a client that comes in, they haven't worked out in like 12 years, they're looking to lose weight. And then you bring them in and you're like, okay, well, hey, we got to work on this form.
Sure.
But working on the form brings the intensity down. They don't get that fitness result you're talking about. They kind of get bored. They're like, hey, I'm trying to pay for these like these workouts to be intense. I want to leave sweating, but you're like, hey, as a coach, I don't want to hurt you. That's worse than you not getting the fitness result. How do you deal with that?
Well, great question. I recently started teaching a class each week at Lifetime in June because I just miss coaching real people. All I've been doing is coaching coaches, and I prefer coaching real people, if I'm being honest. And not that we're not real people, but you know what I'm saying.
No,
like
totally.
consumers.
100%.
And it's the class is called Alpha Strong. It's effectively CrossFit, and I happen to be coaching on the day that is the Olympic weightlifting day, where you work on cleans, jerks, snatches. And these are, generally speaking, 35, 40-year-old and above with zero experience doing this.
Yeah.
And so I want to follow the program because I do think people can do more than oftentimes we say they can. Like, we try to treat people like glass. And I like being careful, but like also don't be disempowering. So they want to do it. I want them to do it. The problem is, as we work on the form, and I'm just reiterating what you said, as we work on the form, they fail to get a fitness effect, right? Like, if you're not good at a clean and jerk, you can't go heavy. And so therefore you don't get much of an overload. And so I'm constantly supersetting things where I'm like, let's work on our form, and then you're going to do a real basic kettlebell swing or a real basic squat in order for me to get an output and some sort of physical characteristic challenge so we can cause a fitness adaptation while also getting your form improvement.
Yeah. And would you say that's sort of like CrossFit-y?
It's a bit CrossFit-y. CrossFit does admittedly a better job than what Lifetime's doing in that program, because CrossFit will have a different boxes do it differently, but a 5 to 10 class on-ramp where they're exposing them to the form of the major moves that they're doing. And a lot of places will do this, like kettlebell gyms will often do this. You have to go through a little series to understand how to swing, clean, snatch, jerk with the kettlebell safely, effectively. So that's the ideal if you have that going through. But in a big box like Lifetime, you don't really have that option. They just join and they have access to everything. And so then if you're trying to tell them they have to go through this series, one, the staffing, the paying, the how many people are coming through, you never know if you're going to have people. It just wouldn't logistically make sense. So instead, we just kind of are hoping for the best. Now, we do follow, it's not my program, so I could badmouth it, I could say good.
Yeah.
What I like about it is we do have a 12-week block where it's endurance, it's strength, and then it's power. And so if I can get the clients in the big box to be consistent on the day that they go to, and that's just education, but we try to educate them, or our team tries to educate them really effectively, like, keep coming on Wednesdays. Don't just flight around to different classes because you won't get the same results.
Oh, that's interesting, because they're group classes.
And typically in a big box, they're just like, I'll just do whatever on whatever day. And oftentimes that's driven by a schedule reality.
Yeah.
They're busy professionals, parents, and they don't know when the hell they're going to get in there, so they go when they can. That's always going to trump not doing anything. However, if you're always coming on Wednesday and you just do a different class every week, you can do better. So let's do better.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So when I want to roll back around into like your functional training, like your thoughts on different functional training, but I also want to talk about like 21 years of experience in personal training. That's wild, man. The average life of a personal trainer is roughly 3 years. The average life of a trainer, because the life of a trainer is pretty rough. How do you manage to survive 21 years of this industry?
I've hedged my bets by having a varied jobs across. So I when I mentor younger trainers, I tell them I think you should group train and personal train. And look, honestly, if you have a side job that's not personal training, sometimes that's not a bad gig, because personal training will have its ebbs and flows seasonally. Group training gets rid of that a little bit, so if you have that ability. But, go get a job at Trader Joe's, get discounts at groceries or Whole Foods or whatever the hell it is, right? I don't really care, but it also relieves some pressure when you're starting. Now, that's against the go all in mentality that some people have, but that's an individual choice. So for me, when I started, I was managing at Trader Joe's and I started my own boot camp. And so as that grew, I finally got to a point where I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to go all in. Let's go all in. And I didn't even go all in. I just went to like part-time Trader Joe's, keep my insurance and discounted groceries. It's a good idea. Sounds like I'm selling Trader Joe's right now.
I was just at Trader Joe's this weekend. I love Trader Joe's.
It's amazing. I'm thinking about going back. And so I just went all in, like get a bunch of certs. This was 2009. Go to 2 days a week at Trader Joe's. I did an internship at Todd Durkin's place, Fitness Quest 10. I don't know how many damn certification weekends I went through that year, a lot of them. And that's where I got fortunate enough to go to an event called MoveNat in West Virginia with this French dude named Erwan Lacour. He was big in barefoot running, like outdoor CrossFit-y paleo scene. And it was right at, like approaching the apex of the paleo times in fitness. And even CrossFit. CrossFit, obviously has fallen off quite a bit in the last handful of years here. And
Why do you think that is?
I think because they went so damn hard into competition that they lost their fitness. And the company itself owned that and said, hey, we're not going to push the competition as much in the clubs.
And I just because on this note, with I've always thought in my mind, like I think the people who do CrossFit, they're like Super Saiyan trainers. They do like Super Saiyan training, but I always think that also that in my mind, first and foremost, like, and correct me where I'm wrong here, because I don't have a super like deep depth of knowledge here in this, but that it is a sport. And so I always thought, I think it's like super impressive, just like bodybuilding is super impressive. But in terms of training Gen Pop people with a sport kind of approach, what's your thoughts on that?
So to an extent, so if I can paint this differently, when it started, it wasn't a sport. It became a sport. And so when it started, it was just high intensity, constantly time, etc. That used more calisthenics, gymnastics, body weight stuff, plus introduced the barbell to more people than had ever used it before. And then it also brought in kettlebells to a lot of people that had never used those before. So as a whole, it's probably disrespected by a lot of the fitness industry as not recognizing for what it did for introducing the industry to these bigger, more iron type approach to fitness. But as the competition aspect became bigger for the brand, the boxes emulated that approach, and their own workouts became trying to do the competition and make everybody move into a competition. So
That's interesting.
The thing that it really did well at the very beginning was actually introduce intensity, actually introduce heavy weights. And the little bit of competition of working out within a group really drives a higher effort level for most people. Some people think that's bad. I think that's bullshit. I think it's great, right? Like a little healthy competition ain't bad. And in a group environment, it made people work hard. And that's why a lot of people got great results. Yes, when you're working harder and maybe you've never had before, there might be a higher risk for injury. And so as the competition became a bigger thing within the company as a whole, and that trickled down to the individual boxes, there probably was more injuries as a whole as well. Recognizing that was no longer a good thing at the top, they said, hey, we're not pushing competition to the boxes anymore. You need to chill on that. So it's a long-winded answer. I don't even remember what the exact question was, but I think that's a good oral history of the intensity of CrossFit.
Yeah, you were talking about like how, that the sports competition kind of is killing and dwindling their like, let's say, impact on the fitness industry right now.
Yeah, and it turned off probably, I'm going to say the smarter people that it looked for additional thoughts on strength and conditioning. So you would have seen CrossFit's drop their affiliate name in favor of, let's say it was CrossFit Little Italy, and then it became Little Italy Strength and Conditioning. And you saw this happen quite a bit across the brand as it got more intense. So as a whole, they make less noise now than they did 5 years ago, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago even. But I think, man, if anyone doesn't understand that they really brought powerlifting to the precipice and like emphasis within the industry, they're lying to themselves. And same thing with Olympic weightlifting, and honestly the same thing with kettlebells.
So this was sort of impacted you, or like along your journey of this 21 years, kind of go back to your journey going through this 21 years experience in fitness. Like this, you sort of saw this, it impacted your. It
didn't really impact me. It's just something I'm aware of because I've been scheduling seminars and workshops and certifications for so long. I had a number of CrossFit boxes that a coach took a course with me and said, "Can you come do a programming seminar here?" And so, I was a member at a CrossFit box for 4 months before I went all in. I often said I had the best start to a fitness job that you ever could have had, in that I was not full-time in fitness. I was full-time managing Trader Joe's. And so I was a fitness consumer for a number of years, and I would just do experiments. 2 months of nothing but Pilates, 4 months of nothing but CrossFit. I was sore for 4 months, right? But I wanted to win. I enjoyed the competition. I did nothing but hot yoga for a full 8 weeks to see how it would affect my basketball. And that was always my test. How does workout affect my basketball performance?
Gotcha.
And yeah, it's very qualitative, of course, but a lot of times we say, and it's surface level nonsense from a lot of coaches, but we say the gym should prepare you for your activities outside. And the reality, this is where I've come around. I'm older now. I think I got a better grasp. Most people, unfortunately, don't have other activities. The gym is their activity. And that's why I say I like kettlebells. It becomes my activity. That makes the gym the thing. So now I'm getting the benefits of the gym, but it's also the activity. So we don't need to say the gym can't be the end all goal in and of itself. Oftentimes we try to paint this picture, and I think it's nice. I think it's optimistic though, right? Saying whatever you're doing here is going to get you ready, and now you're going to just go be super active and play sports and go hiking and do all these fun things that you weren't doing before because now you're fit. And I see that happen, but not that often.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I one main thing that I've always told my clients, and let me know what you think on this, is appearance follows function. If you're in here and you're trying to appear a certain way, first worry about like your function. And also your health is also predicated on, or at least impacted greatly on your performance. I think Harvard had a study that came out that said if you could they followed thousands of, in California, they followed thousands of firefighters and all men. So this is primarily men, but basically they found that when they did a study over a period of about 10 years, they found that if you could do 40 push-ups in no less than 30, so 30 to 40 push-ups in one bout, you were about 93% less likely to die of a heart attack. And so I always, in my mind, I'm as a functional guy, I'm always thinking and teaching and preaching, I guess, that like it's really about function and also about building muscle strength and thinking less about adiposity and thinking more about muscle function. In any case, like I'm right there with you 100%. I think like it's function first for me. We got to get your body to function well, and then everything else will kind of come this way. Because I feel like people think they get out of shape and then they lose their abilities, but really I think it's that they lose their abilities and then they become out of shape.
Oh, 100%. And I'll point one other thing out where I think it's a miscue. That's the wrong word. I think that trainers get it wrong, where we're oftentimes really hyper-focused on getting our clients to want to lift heavier weights, chase performance goals. And you shouldn't rush that for people that don't care.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you do that, then you're just kind of talking at them.
Yeah.
And they came to us maybe because of health or maybe because of their aesthetic goals. And we've gotten in this like altruistic, almost like holier than thou. No, we won't let you have a bad goal, like feeling better about yourself because of aesthetics, because it's unhealthy to have aesthetic goals. No, it's okay to have aesthetic goals. And if we can then create over time the goals of lifting more weight that improves their function, the form will follow. But for a period of time, like go ahead and let them chase their form or their physical form. Tell them everything we're doing and how it's going to help them for what they told us they want, and help educate them over time. I don't know if that made sense.
No, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. This is and I think I know what causes that. So I have a thought that basically, and I say this to my trainers because to some degree we do have to make this fun. Like to your point, and I'm going to roll back to like the basketball thing. That this thing has got to be helping you with something outside of the gym, as opposed to it being like this is the only thing that we're doing. Basically, that to some degree we have to make this fun, make this entertaining. And so here's what I say, and let me know what you think on this. But it's not the results that keep your clients coming; it's what keeps your clients coming that eventually gives them their results.
Yeah, that makes ton of sense.
And so like I sort of say this. What do you think? What do you think on that?
I think 100%, because if you're waiting for the results to keep you coming, good luck, because results take a while.
This is exactly right. And then, so I think I know what causes that though. So this is something that I get frustrated with, and maybe you too, and maybe give us some advice on how to deal with this. But you want to there are some clients that come in and they want to see that there is a result from the money that they're investing, right? But it's like, hey, I'm trying to get you to understand this is something more than just, hey, the number that's on the number that's on the bench or the back squat. This isn't all about you just being able to do 10, 20 push-ups or however many sit-ups. That's boring anyways. But then they're like, yeah, that sounds great for you to tell me that, because you want me to keep paying you money.
Yeah.
So like, they're like, okay, well then I'm going to show you that this is working for you. And the only way to do that is to kind of create, let's say, a SMART goal with like a very specific performance metric. That's like, hey, this is where I can show you that your progress in a chart is getting better. How do you combat that? Because 100% I agree with you. How do you combat that?
It's tough. And I'll use an example. Every trainer probably has made a post. Soreness is not indicative of a good workout. But you know what it is? It's proof that the workout did something.
Right.
So when people start and we tell them soreness is bad, it's a bad idea, like we're almost bad-mouthing their intelligence because that's what they associate with an effective workout. And now you're speaking down to your client. I don't think that's a great way to go. But when we're looking at what are results that a client's looking for, whether it's your example of getting stronger or maybe more often losing fat, having more definition, that takes a while, right? That's a month before you're looking in the mirror like, oh, look at that. That's a month of working out hard and dieting appropriately. And so the proof that the workout accomplished anything is soreness. And in the session, it's burn, sweat, and breathe hard. And unfortunately, in our goal to educate on what is effective workouts, we overlook this human aspect of psychology and emotions of what are we accomplishing anything right now, because it's very difficult to have this long-term view that if I keep coming and doing this thing that's making me uncomfortable and work hard now, that in 6 months or 3 months or whatever the time frame is, I will eventually trust that this is going to work, even though I have no proof that it's going to work because it's never worked for me or I've never done it before. And so at the beginning, the takeaway to me is don't feel bad about making a workout intelligently quite difficult, even if it's not what you think is the best workout from a long-term perspective. It's just a taste, right? That's why they're called a finisher. It's the sprinkles on the cake. It's not even the frosting. It's just the thing that looks like it's crazy. Get on the assault bike and do some sleds back and forth. They're gasping, they're burning. That's the thing they remember the most, and you have accomplished the emotional psychology goal. So I think that we try to protect our clients with really well-educated, thought-out processes, but in doing so, we're getting a little cute and maybe missing the mark of some important stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I call that set for me the monster set. That's that end set, that last thing that you do before you leave, like let's get it all out, to kind of give you like that emotional psychology bit of it. Like, hey, this is doing something. It's the same thing with like abs. Like people want to see like a six pack, let's say. I don't know what you think on abs. I don't really isolate abs myself too often. I'm more of a compound functional dude. I do a lot of like running, and I just did a 100-mile run in an Ironman this year. And so like for me, it's a lot of just that functional movement stuff. In any case, I'm not really the person to be like doing abs and crunches and all that. And so I don't often think that, but I do have a bit of a six pack, let's say.
Sure.
In any case, it's just because my fat percentage is pretty low from all the running, I think.
Yeah, your body fat percentage is going to show your six pack.
Yeah.
But let me talk about the core function if I could.
Go ahead. Yeah, hit it.
Because this is like a nitty gritty, but it's an enjoyable conversation.
No, go ahead, hit it.
Because so much of the functional crowd, CrossFit specifically, and powerlifting specifically, will talk about that the primary function of the core is to resist movement. I don't think that's entirely right. I think that, yes, it can do that, but it also creates movement, because it can flex, it can side bend, it can rotate. And so these are functions that we have to do. And if we never train them, we don't get better at doing them. So if we think about it from a function standpoint instead of just an aesthetic standpoint, it's actually somewhat important. Like getting the rib cage to move, keeping some healthy moving spine and some rotation throughout the body might not be a bad idea.
100%. I actually also, I actually saw, I have this thought in my mind. Appearance follows function kind of came from a long time ago. I saw this video of a bodybuilder, like this super ripped bodybuilder doing like windmills hanging from a bar. And I was like, and you just see every striation of the muscle, like in his oblique, in his abs, just moving as he's going. And I'm like, one, that's incredible bit of strength. Like very, very few people can do that. But then he also has like no fat percentage. So you just see all the muscles working. And I just thought in my mind, like, there's no way you're going to get abs like that. I mean, maybe you're doing some steroids to help you out. But in any case, you still have to work the function of those abs to get that, to get that movement, to get that definition. So in any case, I always feel like it comes back to appearance follows function. Function first, and you appear later. But the gig was, and I got a question. I'm sorry, I'm going ahead of myself. What do you mean by, for people who don't know this, what do you mean by the abs resist movement?
So a lot of people will say that getting tight and not bending sideways under a load, or not extending backwards through the lower back, which would be lengthening of the anterior abs, right? That is the primary function of the core, is what people say, is to be stiff, be tight. And the reason they have that mentality is they're looking at all movement through a weight room lens. In order to lift barbells, yeah, you want to be tight. You don't want to be bending sideways or rotating on accident. But for everything else that we do in life, you're going to be side bending and flexing and extending and twisting and combinations of those things. And we oftentimes, when we're in the fitness industry, look through a fitness in the gym lens of what movement is. Even our categorizations, squat, hinge, lunge, push, pull, carry. These are very arbitrary reductionist views of what the body does. They're useful in creating programs. So it's not that they're bad. They are useful. I use them myself, but they're not complete. Anytime we reduce, if we reduce too damn far, we end up missing some stuff. And so with the core, yes, it resists function, but it also moves things. And a lot of the industry will just say, if I do my big compound movements, I got enough core work. And then if I put them through a little direct core work, they go to pieces. I'm like, did you really? Think of it this way. That makes all the cores isometric firing. Would you ever have your bicep only do isometrics, or your hamstring only do isometrics? Probably not.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like, no, there's no doubt. It's just me justifying not throwing abs into my workouts.
Oh, look, I went through it. We all went through it because we all listen to, whether it be FMS or we listen to powerlifters, like we all have influences, and the folks that are cool in the industry that are kind of leading a lot of us that are seeking out education. We go, that makes sense. I like what you said here. Yes, my core is tired after I do a set of squats, therefore I may not need to do more. But then you go, you do it long enough and you go, shit, I have a hole now.
Yeah.
In my abs.
Yeah, no doubt. And like, just to finish up on that, what I was saying like earlier was like, for like the emotional psycho kind of, let's say, way of thinking about it is I have people do abs. I have about 5 minutes of abs at the end of their workouts so that they're sore in their abs on the next workout. The soreness feeling, I think, really helps them think that give them this idea that their stomach is getting smaller because of the tightness.
Totally.
And they can feel it. And so like that mindset, even if it's placebo on this is working to have me lose weight, even though like, let's say crunches don't do very much for you when it comes to like calorie expenditure, if you're looking to lose weight, it's the main goal.
Yeah.
I still think they play a good role in helping your mindset and that this is working.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, if I got a lady coming in and I make her feel this, this, and this, she's buying and she's staying because they'll be sore and she'll love that. And then for the bros, I'm like, buys, pecs, and abs. Like, we're winning.
100%. It really is useful in my mind in them really actually reaching that goal long term. If they just keep coming in and doing that and they feel that, and that feeling is what really makes them think it's working and feel it's working, then I mean, placebo works 60% of the time. Let's go.
Every
time.
What
I mean? Every time. 60, Anchorman, dude.
Yeah. 60% of the time, every time.
So, okay, so you're doing hot yoga. So get back to it. So you're doing hot yoga and you're seeing how it affects your basketball. Continue on with that then. So now you're you are going into these different functional types of working out or just any kind of working out and seeing how it is helping you. So kind of continue on with that before you kind of go into full-time training.
Well, so that was basically the test. I'm like, hey, let's just see. Like I'm a 6-foot-ish goofy white guy with tall tube socks and short shorts before they were cool, and I'm able to dunk on people, right? And I'm like, this is cool. How do I keep doing this more? Yoga is not it. By the way, if you only do yoga, you will have a decrease in performance.
Oh, interesting. Explain.
So it was 8 weeks. Maybe I was just dehydrated because it was all hot yoga, but it lacks any power and it lacks any real strength. And the way I say real strength, that's dependent on where you are in your journey. For me, I was, squatting 400 pounds and lifting pretty heavy. So if I go to nothing but isometric holds in yoga, it's not a surprise that I have strength and power output diminishments. For 8 freaking weeks. Yeah. So that's it. And I've recreated it with a full 6-week ISO stretching routine I did 3 years ago. Same thing. Power, strength went down, but it was to be expected. Anyway, so the test was always basketball. Kettlebell training just happens to work fairly well for me. And I think for a lot of people, it would work well. And the biggest reason is for me, at my point, I've established a base of strength that is high enough that now additional pure 1RM back squats and deadlifts probably won't have a huge payoff in my jump ability or my quickness ability. So what has better payoff there is practicing being quick and powerful in multiple directions. And power training can help us maintain our high-end strength really well. Hypertrophy work can help us maintain our high-end strength pretty well. So if I can, every 2 to 3 weeks, come up, touch something heavy, I will maintain 90% plus of my top end strength. And since no more gives me better results on the basketball court or performance, I don't need to do it. It doesn't interest me. For someone that it does interest, like 1RMs, chase it. I don't care, right? But for me, I'm like, I've just turned 41, and 3 days ago, I was still able to dunk over at First Form headquarters. And
I was watching a video of you that you recently put up, and you're very limber, dude. You're very, you have a good agility and body movement. You have a great flow.
So I think a big piece of that, one, it's a little genetic. I've been playing sports my whole life and doing a bunch of different stuff. So it'd be irresponsible for me to be like, yeah, it's because of how I train. But how I train helps keep it going, right? Because I've seen a lot of people that was athletic with me in high school. They don't train, and now I look at them run. I'm like, what happened to you? Oh, you stopped doing it. So with the kettlebell, we actually have this definition, and I developed this definition after the St. Louis Fitness Biz conference that I spoke at, which is one of the 6 principles in health qualities we want for our clients are strength and mobility, I think, are 1 and 2, right? They just help us keep young, so to speak. Subsets of strength would be power, but I don't mean power like in a bunch of different directions. So I just mean the aspect of being able to fire your muscles quickly, right? And those are usually like measure my wattage on a rower or the bike. That would be a good power output as well. Hypertrophy, because more muscle mass as we age is good up to a point, because if your total weight is super duper high as you age, it's not necessarily great, but more muscle mass is going to be better, right? So that's 4. Cardiorespiratory fitness, huge. But the number 6 is athleticism. And athleticism is almost like us reclaiming the term functional. I like the term functional, but I think we can recognize that a lot of the industry badmouths the term functional, right? They want to be dicks like, oh, a barbell curl is functional because you get stronger. I'm like, yes, I understand what you're saying, but let's not misrepresent what was the intention of functional. So we're rebranding to an extent athleticism. Athleticism of the lower body looks like change of direction, acceleration, moving fast, locomotion. It looks like sport, right? But how do you categorize athleticism in the upper body? Well, that's throwing. That's manipulating some sort of a tool. So mace bell, baseball bat, golf club, javelin, whatever. Med balls for us in the gym, and kettlebells, club bells. Because now you have to be moving and managing this dynamic load that is always you having some reactivity. And reactivity is the number one thing in athleticism, where I actually have to have a stimulus and I go, oh shit, like what do I do here? Don't get hit by the kettlebell. Don't get tackled by the defender. And the kettlebell, dancing with the bells, is like I make fun of myself. Dancing with the bells is me having to be reactive with it. Now I'm directing where it's going, so I shouldn't have to react too damn much, but it's enough to where it's very dynamic. There's a lot of variability within the sets, and it gives me some very unique training effects that are different than my feet are anchored. This load is not going to move anywhere because I'm not letting it move anywhere. And it is a higher level movement aptitude than the other stuff. So it's not at the base of the pyramid of the importance of what we're doing. Because if I got a client come to me for health and aesthetic goals, I don't need them doing through the leg hand switch snatches. There's way simpler ways to do it. And that's where I would start them. But if I can get them moving, whether it be the kettlebell, landmine, mace bell, I don't care what it is, moving athletically, that's where people's enjoyment for what they do tends to kick in. And now that thing that you said, which was really well said, about how do I get them to enjoy the process instead of waiting for the result to keep them coming in, now that can play a big role in that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think like for us, I when it comes to resistance and function, I separate these. I try to simplify it. So all the way down, and I've got this questions for you here on variety and the things that you were kind of going into about adding variety. I've kind of fallen into this to create a program that's easily ran. Like I try to simplify everything down all the way down to even the functional movements into like crawls, carries, hangs, that kind of thing, jumps. So I broke that down into 7 functional movements into 7 movements. Then our core resistance movements into 6, the push, pull, rotation, squat, lunge, hinge. In any case, like I've pushed the resistance away from the function, resistance being something that's fixed and controlled, and function being something that is very much uncontrolled, unorthodox, like very hard to measure, let's say. Like doing a jump, doing a burpee is an awesome way of saying there's definitely a right way and a wrong way to do a burpee, way that can hurt you, way that can't, but then you can throw burpees into so many things. Like you can throw a burpee into anything. I say you could throw a burpee into like a pull-up, you could throw a burpee into a kettlebell swing. In any case, I like throwing stuff like that into it to make it a little bit crazier. So in any case, like just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, like definitely resistance is different than functional. And then functional, now you're calling it athletic. I think that's also really smart because people don't really understand what you mean when you say functional but they definitely know what you're talking about when you say athletic. Do you get any blowback on that?
Not yet. And part of the reason might be because I haven't talked about it a ton. It's like that athleticism, that definition, that's something that I help define within our PPSC company. But athleticism, John Russin is actually the guy that put it in as one of the 6 qualities. And it's going to be this new course that we come out with, not even next year, but the year after, because we have to sit on it because next year his book for pain-free performance training comes out, and that's going to put a lot of life back into what we already have. So we can't launch too many damn things all at once.
Right.
The comical part is this other course, and we've run 3 private events of it. It's really good. I'd love to launch it right away, but we also have to be making business logical decisions. And to an extent, and as a precursor to like if we talk variety and variability, as much as I would love to do a lot of it, I also have to make business logical decisions of what can function in the group training session or small group training session. And you can't just do everything you want all the time.
Yeah, that's so we do one-on-one. We focus and specialize in one-on-one, but we also have group, and I'll probably go a little bit harder in group next year with the new thing that we're dropping in the beginning of the year to kind of add more community, and then we're going to eventually expand here. So I was kind of telling you that before the podcast, so we need to do things a little bit differently than we were doing before.
Yeah.
But in any case, what I found difficult was like, how are we going to bring in 4 people at scale and then give them good quality programming when you have 4 people that can schedule on any personal trainer at any given time throughout the week? You almost have to, even though it's only 4 people, you'll have close attention while you're in that. But what's difficult is how do you create programming that everyone can do at all fitness levels and they can see their progress? That's been a difficult one for me, and I don't have a specific answer. Maybe you have a better, at least some form of solution, but that's what I'm having trouble with.
We ran it. So the studios I owned, they were called Fitwall, and There's 2 that are still open and running and doing great in Denver. They were franchisees. We were the franchisor, and we had 4 of them. We had one in Scottsdale. That one always struggled because for 4 months of the year, nobody lives there.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other 3 were in California. And when COVID came, that was the end of that, because California COVID was different than St. Louis COVID.
For sure.
And the principal offering was a 14 to 20 person class where everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. They all have their own station with all the same equipment. And we built our own tech so they can follow the tech. That actually just frees up the coach to actually coach. So that's our principle, but we added ancillary, what we called focus training, which is just semi-private, 4-on-1 training. And the way that we did it, which is similar to how a lot of different people do it, is you have a main program that they're going to follow for 4 weeks, maybe 6. We did 4. And within that format, if you can't do a back squat because of whatever reason, you don't like to, it bothers your shoulders, back, etc., you just get a different squat. So we just sub the exact exercise variation for the pattern. And the way I describe that is this: yes, everyone's a snowflake, but everybody's a snowflake. All snowflakes fall from the ground or from the sky and hit the ground. They look a little different. And so when we write a program, we probably don't necessarily need everybody to be like, let me start different work set ratios, sets, reps, schemes, exact exercise, tool placements. A lot of trainers make their life very difficult by treating every single program like a perfect work of art. You know why a lot of people get really good results just following a generic program? Because they followed the program.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's it. And so if I have a 4-on-1, I'll write it, let's say it's 6 weeks. Within that 6 weeks, and I look at my 4 people that are coming, theirs will have slight notes because 80% of the program, they're going to be able to do the same, right? They all want to have some abs. They can all do the same ab exercise unless they've got a lower back thing and one can't do front plank because it irritates their back. They get a standing Palloff press instead. Boom. One little change. If they're repeating it for 6 weeks, they learn it by week 2, maybe. I know how clients are, right? They forget sometimes. That's what we're here for. But we just manipulate a little bit. And that's how we made it work pretty darn well. Is this is the program, everyone's following it, but it has subtle tweaks. So you can still tell them it's your program, but largely it's the same.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, there's going to be, there definitely is, like you said, everyone's the snowflake, but for me, it's like execution on a program is like where I focus with my one-on-one training. I've been a trainer for 11 years, and like the number one thing is like I can give you the most personalized program you've ever seen in your life, like just right down to like the what finger you should be firing, but if you're not executing on it. So I try to like simplify it up so that like, hey, maybe, ideally all of these things, right? Ideally, but let's execute. I call it the pulse. Let's get a weekly, like a daily, weekly pulse, monthly pulse, and then once we got that pulse, we can bring it to life with personalization. Get a little bit more complex as you go. Also gives them something to look forward to in the future if you start with like a really simplified program. And at the end of the day, and I know we just talked about this. At the end of the day, like you said, we all are going to fall from the sky and float to the earth. We're not going to be that much different.
Yeah.
So like in any case, like I definitely agree with that. So going back, you get your kettlebell certification after that, after you start to really enjoy kettlebell, you see what it does for you.
Yep.
And then when do you go full time? And then when do you start teaching these certifications? And what certifications are you teaching and workshops are you running? And what inspired you to do that?
So 2010 is when I went full tilt, left Trader Joe's, internships, gathering certs, doing these things. And the first one was called Move Naturally. And it was all about outdoor movement and being practical, which is kind of ironic, but like practical with your movement versus all exercise. So his example that he would often say is, I've got a number of you here who can do 20 pull-ups, but you can't dead hang from a branch and get on top of the branch. And I'm like, that's not that practical. It's impressive, but it ain't that practical because we ain't living in trees. Okay? But it was interesting. I liked it. And it was very enjoyable to go outside. I preferred working out outside and being explorative with movement more than following a strict routine. That was my personal preference. But what ended up happening is he and I had the same birthday. He's kind of a mystical dude. I think he thought the heavens said it was there. I recognized that he was feeling me out about maybe coming aboard. And so I said, hey, maybe I can teach for you. He said, let's try it out. And so fortunately, I went and started teaching MoveNat in 2011, starting in the end of March till April of 2012. I taught 88 workshops. So that was like 1 8-hour day on Saturday, go to the airport covered in dirt because I was outside in a park all day, taking 20 people through a whole workshop, get on a plane, fly to the next city, do it again the next day.
That is wild, man. How much did you learn in that period of time?
An inordinate amount, because like when I started, yes, I'd been teaching group classes, and yes, I'd been personal training people, because I've been personal training people since 2000. When in the college, I was the goofy, skinny white guy that can dunk, and they're like, "Hey, man, how can you do that?" And I'm like, "Let me show you my workout." Right? I didn't know anything then, but it's a good selling point on the basketball court to be a kind of a shorter white guy that can dunk. It's just how it is.
Yeah, I feel that.
And having juicy pecs, right? That also helps. Juicy pecs. So the MoveNat, what ended up happening is just made me, I was very nervous and not confident when I was starting. I'm like, I'm brand new and I'm teaching this. And I had an epiphany. When you're teaching, they're coming and you're the expert. They don't know if you say it wrong. They don't even know if you're making it up as you go, right? And that's not to say I'm doing that. Some people that do go talk, they do that. And you can recognize it if you're good at speaking. You're like, you're making this shit up right now.
Yeah.
You're testing new material. Get out of here with this. But for me, I was like, oh, they're coming. They want to learn MoveNat. I'm just teaching them MoveNat. And whether they agree with it or they think it's wrong, that doesn't matter because they're here to do this. So I learned a lot there. I learned that travel is very fun to start and very exhausting after a while, because if you're doing 3 to 4 flights per week, that's a lot. I lived on people's sofas and hotels for that entire 16-month period. Yeah, it was rough. And that challenge, you have no routine, right? No routine because you're in different places all over the place. You're fatigued quite a bit, and I was 28 at the time, so I was young, and I still got hurt. Like 2 of my major injuries happened during that year. Is it the radiation? Is it dehydration because of flying? Is it whatever it could be? I ended up with a bone bruise on the head of my femur that had the articular cartilage, so the covering of the bone died, flaked off, got stuck in the joint line, had to get it vacuumed out. And I still have a pothole at the head of my femur. And while that injury was there waiting for surgery, I tore my labrum in my shoulder doing a 167-pound barbell get up.
So you're still getting after it.
I was still getting after it. Got it on the right, missed it on the left.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me to be like, all right, I'm done traveling and teaching for now. I got to get these things healed up. I started my boot camp, BA training. BA training means be able, be athletic, be adaptable. And that was a boot camp out of my backyard in San Diego and also at the beach. I also was working as a one-on-one trainer in a big box gym. So I have that experience because I had never really had that specific experience of working this gym floor and I wanted it. After MoveNat, I got picked up on the waiver wire, I say, by a company called Kettlebell Athletics to travel and teach the Kettlebell Athletics certification, mostly to a gym chain called Equinox on the West Coast. I also got picked up by a company called Animal Flow, which is just body weight, like dynamic, almost yoga-esque, but more dancey, explorative movement. So I taught both of those for the next 9 years, taught about 100 certs on each of those. I got hired, I don't know, a couple dozen times for doing programming certifications from people that had taken certs from me from MoveNat that were mostly CrossFit boxes, to be honest. We had a lot of CrossFit clients that came to the MoveNat because Rob Wolf, who was a CrossFit guy, was pushing MoveNat for a period of time there. And so we got a lot of CrossFitters come in. Then I would talk and they'd be like, damn, we're nothing but sagittal bilateral beasts. Can you help me? And I'm like, yes, I can help you. Then I got in this weird position where I got asked to come and teach at a brand new gym in San Diego called Fitwall. And they had no real plan for what the hell they were going to do. And I was like, you guys are going to run 20-minute workouts? That ain't going to sell. No one's coming to that. 40 minutes. You're only going to put them on this weird ladder device? No. That's not going to work. People's grips are going to get tired. Their hands are going to hurt. You're in San Diego, this ain't Wyoming. This ain't going to work here. So we did it, and we grew to 7 franchises in like 3 years, which is pretty good. And at one point, I was writing the programming for 2,200 people following the exact same thing. Build our own software, build our own heart rate monitoring system, and our longevity in a group class averaged well over 2 years, which is quite good. It was a shit show of ownership changes and not having ads and all sorts of things that was out of my control. I'm this exercise guy. When I finally was in control, it was great. We tripled our revenue. We were profitable. It was nice. And then other bad decisions.
So you have like a pretty good experience in like the fit biz side of it as well as the fit training. So how, just out of curiosity, so like how would you say you have more experience like training trainers?
It's equal at this point.
Or is it like the actual client?
So from 2014 to 2020, so almost 6.5 basic years of Fitwall, I coached 30 hours of of regular group classes and semi-privates and one-on-ones every single week.
And what do you think changed from like the beginning of doing that to now, like in you, like in how you train people? Because I feel like, training trainers to train people, and now you train people as well. Like what do you think you got wrong, and what evolved?
I don't know.
Or what do you got right to, whatever evolved?
At the beginning when I was in MoveNat didn't train trainers. It was largely trainers. It was maybe like 60% trainers and 40% just regular people that had seen them in Men's Health or heard about it through CrossFit and Paleo. And so that was just showing the system, and it was very like abstract. Like, we want to be outside and have challenges and be uncomfortable and be ready for anything and be adaptive. So it wasn't much of a how you train somebody experience. For kettlebells and animal flow, training trainers, it's like, these are the muscles it works. This is why you would do it. Here's the progressions. With clients, everything comes back to, this is why it'll help you with whatever your goal is, whether that be aesthetic or performance. So it's just how you deliver the material. When I teach a kettlebell to a client, it's brief, right? Like, I'm like, this is what I want you to do. Oh, you're doing it right. Let's go. Let's get it.
Right.
I don't need to be like, okay, and that's why you're getting the abduction plus the external rotation. And at the top, you have a little bit of also the posterior tuck. But when I teach a trainer, they should know all that, so that when they're teaching it to their client, it's understood. So when they see that it's missing, they can fix them. But the client doesn't need to know all that necessarily. If they ask for it, sure, I can give it to them. I have a habit of over-explaining because I wear both hats.
Right.
In fact, I start every alpha class like this. I go, hey guys, my name's Cliff, and I only coach one class a week here because my primary job is fitness education. I probably trained your trainer.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I talk a lot, and I'm going to be really explanatory of everything that you're going to do. And if you don't want to hear my sexy nasal voice, just say, shut up, Cliff, and I will leave you alone.
Yeah, because you'll lose, you'll like, some people, they really want you to explain it all, but like, I would say probably most people who are just Gen Pop people that you're training, they will start to fall asleep if you're like, yeah, you're going to do, like, they're like, just tell me what I'm doing.
Yeah, most of them, they don't really care. I have a goal, like, how uncomfortable can I make people feel without being inappropriate and just be memorable with comedy, where, I've been fortunate. Like, a lot of the coworkers will have, they'll say, hey, new trainers, you got to go take his class because this is what you should emulate on how to teach a class and how to run a session, because it's thoroughly enjoyable. They're getting education. Their form's on point. And that's 21 years. Like, I've been doing it for a while. So the difference is the why. And this is a big takeaway for trainers. Even though clients may not need to know all the little nitty-gritties, they do need to know the why and how what they're doing is going to help them out. So at Lifetime, and this is before I started working there, one of the top 5 reasons clients would leave personal training is they didn't understand why they were doing the drills that they were doing. So in my head, this looks like, so you say to me, I want to lose weight, da-da-da-da-da. And I go, cool, we're going to deadlift, back squat, row, bench press, strength train. And I fail to tell you how that is going to help your aesthetic goals. Because I'm big brain trainer guy. Like, these are the things you need to do. You don't need to do the high intensity. You don't need to do this, which you associate with fat loss because that emotionally makes sense. I know that this makes sense, but if I'm naive and I don't explain this thoroughly, and even if I do explain it, it may not hit. So it's something to keep in mind. Basically, no matter what type of training you're doing, whether it be training trainers or training clients, you just need to make your delivery fit what their goals are.
Yeah, what do you find is like the most effective way to get your why across and like understood, you think?
I think the biggest thing is just knowing what the why is. I think a lot of people skirt over that. I know that when I was doing some consulting for some different group training, I did this big experiment where I went over, I think it was like 55 different group gyms, which I can do because as I was traveling, I would just hit 2 in a different city. And at that point, our club at Fitwall, we were the only people that were doing a questionnaire when people were new. Everybody else, and I give them the benefit of the doubt, because if I walk in a snug shirt, they're gonna be like, "Oh,
dude, I just realized you put that shirt on."
Yeah,
hell yeah, dude.
Oh. Big.
Now that you did that, yeah.
This is the biggest this big has ever looked.
That's awesome. Well, dude, hell yeah, I didn't know you were gonna put that on. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so what I learned was either they're just assuming that I'm healthy because I have a little bit of fit look to me. I'm not like jacked or that fit looking. But nobody asked me if I like had any injuries, ouchies, boo-boos, what my history was, had I been working out regularly, what do I want to accomplish, what do I want to do? It was just like, come on in, let's go. And that is really irresponsible. And that means that all those people didn't get a chance to understand why I was there. And so at that point, they can't coach me for my why because they don't even know what it is. Now that is group. That's probably a lot different than a one-on-one. However, I've seen in a lot of big boxes, the one-on-one discovery session, first session, screen, whatever you want to call it, people come in and they put them through their arbitrary set of screens. Here's your FMS. Here's your NASM overhead squat assessment. Here's this assessment. Here's my generic whatever I do on day one. And at no point, I'm just looking at you like a piece of meat. I'm just getting data, but I didn't connect with you as to why you're even here. And I just went into like, let me sell you how this is going to change your physique. And you're like, I don't care about my physique. My back hurts. You missed the mark, right? So I think the biggest thing in understanding how to coach a why is knowing what the goddamn why was in the beginning. It's overlooked. As silly as that sounds, I think it's overlooked a lot. And then I just bring it back and make a point to let them know. One of the things that you said earlier about like, why do people come in? Eventually it's because of results. It'd be great if that was sooner. One of the things I tried to train my trainers is to listen for when they say something that is maybe a result of what we did, sleeping better, taking up new activities, whatever. Some people give it away. They're like, oh, that was easier. And you go, that's easier because of what we've been doing here.
Yeah.
And you have to start making the associations of what they do in the gym with what's happening to them, sometimes in the gym, but like outside of the gym as well. And that just looks like more regular conversations, maybe more surveys if you're a business owner, more events with community to where people start talking. And you have to listen for these wins, the non-scale victories, and point them out to people because they're not making those connections themselves.
The why is the most important thing. And it's interesting because I feel like, and we focus on it and we do like I said, we do the first workout and we sit down with the small group people as well and get this why down so that we know, so that they know, because I feel like your endurance and in your journey on trying to accomplish any goal is directly predicated on the strength and clarity of your vision or your why. And so like when you feel like you're lost, I always say like, well, if you're confused and you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, well, it'd be really good to sit down and really like get that why hashed out. And it seems like people sort of roll their eyes when I say get a vision board. Like, it's not a bad idea to get an actual picture of the body that you would be trying to emulate using the theory of forms from Plato. In any case, just having an aim. Like get a clear aim of what you're doing and why you're doing it. You've had a lot of experience going from different states, which I just think this is freaking awesome. How many different states you've gone to and how many different places and different cities you've trained out of. Do you find that is common? That's a common issue, is that people aren't putting in real effort and intention in getting their clients wise?
Yeah, and here's why I think that might be. So when we had our forum, and the goal was people would fill out this form before their first class, and then you would talk about the form with them. And that's where you ask the further whys, the motivational interviewing, whatever it is, right? Sometimes you don't have as much time. But when you ask, like, what are you looking for in a workout today? I think it's an important question. What are you looking for in a workout today? And they say, good sweat. Why are you here? To get a good workout, to lose weight. These are very surface level answers. And so I think a lot of coaches, they never got coached to ask follow-ups, to get to the, I need to do this for health. I need to do this for whatever. Usually people are going to be guarded with their real deeper why and not share it right away. And so over enough time, when you just get surface level answers and you don't dig any further, then you go, well, everyone's got a surface level answer. They just want to get a good sweat. So I'm not going to answer it. I'm just going to assume that's the thing. And, you know, it's hard to miss if you give them a good sweat and a burn and a good workout, right? And safe and they enjoy themselves. It's hard to miss with that. But if you really want to be detailed in tying in every exercise, and that really makes more sense for a one-on-one training situation anyway. If you really want to be detailed, you got to dive into it.
Yeah, we do what's called AGS the first week of every month with every client. Basically sits down with the trainer for 30 minutes outside of their workouts to go back over their goals and their accountability stuff. So we do like habit tracking and all that stuff. So you have specific goals. We set them in 3 different areas and then we track them in the app and we sit down and we're like, hey, how did we do? We do that every time you come into the gym too, but this is the time to sit down and it's not like just a conversation in the workout because we're doing a workout, we're running a workout, we're sitting down to do accountability and goal setting. We can continue to get deeper and deeper into like the person's why, because we can start to really see like, hey, let's say for example, you're trying to, let's say like, we'll make it as simple as you're trying to lose weight, good to go. Let's say the goal is compliancy in 1 workout per week and you showed up to 2. Why did you only show up to 2? Let's keep getting deeper into that, asking the whys on compliancy on things and being like, well, what's the resistance on that?
Yeah.
Like, what's causing you to not do that? Then they start to be like, oh, this, that. Then you really can start to get into somebody because to your point, like right off the bat, you just met this person in the first workout and you're just like, so like, what's your deepest, darkest insecurity? Yeah. Like, you know, it's like they don't want to tell you that. So it takes a little bit of building trust. And that's like why I love one-on-one. One-on-one, I understand in the fit biz is like the least money generating when you look at like
per hour,
right? Because like at the end of the day, and it's most expensive for the client. So, but for me, it's like my one love because I love to dive deeper and deeper into asking like questions about like, what is it about you that is like allowing you to win or allowing you to not win? What do you think, in your experience of 21 dang years of doing this, what do you think the number one thing is that really gets a client to win and achieve their goal?
I mean, it's as funny as this sounds, and maybe like people won't like it. I think it's just getting leaner. Like it just is. Like there's a reason for every year for the last 3 decades that, and I say 3 decades kind of jokingly because the internet wasn't being searched, but like it's always like how to get a 6-pack, how to get leaner. When people say how to lose weight, they mean how to get leaner for the most part. All right, like calm down, everyone that says don't lose weight. They mean get leaner, and so we get them feeling leaner. Now, here are the things. Look, if you get leaner, there's typically going to be health outcomes that are favorable. I'm not talking about, I always use a Sunny in Philadelphia reference, but I won't because it's probably not appropriate. I don't know what rating that you go with.
Oh, dude, like whatever, okay. Anything goes, dude. Anything goes.
They're not looking to get dick skin thin on the level of leanness, right? That's unhealthy, the competitor. But that's not what they're looking for. They're like, can I see like 1 ab? Okay, if you go from no abs to 1 ab, you're going to have positive health outcomes.
Or like the vein. If you get like a vein going.
Get a vein.
Get a vein.
Get a vein.
Yeah.
Right, so we've gone so far in, I'm going to say woke in fitness to like not alienate people and we're fat phobic, etc. No, man, it is healthier to be leaner. Not stupid dick thin lean, but just thick skin thin lean, right? And so getting leaner. So if your goal was getting leaner and you got leaner, you probably also got healthier. If you got leaner, look, as a basketball player, I feel better on the court at 190 pounds than 200. When I'm 200, I'm like, yeah, my knees aren't that jazzed. So if I get lighter, life is easier. If it's easier for me with a well-muscled physique, For someone that is not well muscled, if they're carrying an extra 50 pounds, you know how much better their life is going to feel moving around, getting up off the soda, out of bed, underneath things, picking shit up. Like, it's just going to be easier getting in and out of their car.
Dude, the physics behind weight and like how much mets you're putting out and all this shit, but is kind of crazy. 1 pound of extra body weight is 4 pounds of pressure to the ankles, knees, hips. So, like, to your point, it's exponential. Every pound you lose, it's exponential to how you feel and how you move throughout the day.
Yeah,
It's kind of wild.
It's bonkers. Like, for anyone to be like, no, it's not any different. I'm like, all right, look, trainer, that means well, or is just looking to get like patted on the back for being so supportive. Put on a weight vest and wear that shit around for a day.
Dude, put it on for fucking 30 minutes.
While I say that, while they say that, I tell every trainer, if you want to know how your group class or private session is, put on a weight vest and do your workout that you wrote for your client.
Yeah.
Because that's what they feel. And they are less strong than you. So put on 50 pounds and that is what they're going to experience. So now that you're doing in your session, you accidentally have 17 get up and down off the floors. That is a workout for your new client. Got to be considerate of that.
100%, dude. And like the more you like, just to say, I don't know. I always say this. I think that having a fit body too is like the ultimate modern flex.
Yeah.
You walk into a room, like your lean body, it demands attention from the room. It's like you kind of know, and you know your fit friend because you ask them how the hell they do it all the time. If you're not the fit friend, become the fit friend. That bringing that identity. You don't have to be like super like fit to be the fit friend. You just have to be like hanging out with fit people, doing the workouts, posting the workouts, doing the challenges, and then eventually that you bring that identity in. Find a group of people that join a gym, join a community. They're all over the place, and like that identity really helps you because if your friends are like start calling you the fit friend, like you're going to continue to try to make that true. And so like, like you're going to be like, hey man, I'm going to go out to eat with everybody. You're kind of thinking, fuck, I'm the fit friend. You can't do the double, whatever. You know what I mean? And that really does help. So the more you do that, but in any case, it is something that I guess maybe that's why I push into it is that like, I'm like for the rest of my life, I just want to maintain this lean fit capability.
It becomes your characteristic. It becomes who you are, right? Like,
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's a great goal. I think I remember who said this, right? We do better when grocery shopping becomes
Come a little bit.
when grocery shopping becomes a habit. We do better, right? Like I don't think about making healthy choices at the grocery store. I just go grocery shopping, and that's what I buy. Right? I don't think about going to the gym because I go to the gym. I identify as somebody that goes to the gym. When we can get someone that doesn't go to the gym and they say, I have to go to the gym because they don't identify as a gym goer, and eventually they go, yeah, it's gym time. That is a huge step in the right direction. Like that is a monumental achievement in self-identification as someone who exercises versus who has to exercise. And the same thing is true for any type of habit. Once it becomes an extension of who you are, it's just easy. It's automagic. And
I love
automagic, and no longer does it take effort, willpower, whatever you want to say that, discipline. You just do it. That's gonna be pretty big. So to the big answer to what is the best thing, it's just getting leaner because that's associated with everything else. Once they're there, because a lot of times, I think that if you get them to that point, now they start to associate themselves as the fit person that maybe could go hiking or take up that sport or that activity, because now they see themselves completely different. Their confidence and their competence in their body is completely changed because they got leaner, right? Like, yeah, we can go down the whole rabbit hole of psychology of like, at what point does it become unhealthy and yada, yada, yada. But I'm like way past what most people are trying to do. Most people just like bros, bigger chest than abdomen. Like if you just have a bigger chest than abdomen, you're outperforming physically, like aesthetically, most men on earth.
Yeah.
As sad as that is. And to be honest, like now that I live in Missouri, compared to San Diego, California, it's way different here. And when I lived in a summer in a tent in West Virginia and only shopped at Walmart, Missouri compared to West Virginia is the same as Missouri compared to California in the opposite direction.
Oh, that's so interesting. But what are the differences in the fitness, like in your experience, what are the differences in fitness across the country?
New York, New York in the Northeast is actually they have a bigger spread. So you got like thin or obese, but the middle ground is a little blurred in New York City. I think they just walk all over the place.
What do you think causes that? What do you think causes that difference?
For New York, I think it's just they walk all over the place, and there's also a status of being thinner, leaner, in shape. I think there's a status component there. California is just baked in. It's a more healthy, there's more, like we can debate vegan versus paleo, whatever, right? But there's more vegan, more juice bars, more gyms, more everything that is healthy, activity, life-based stuff. Maybe it's because you can go outside all the time, right? I don't know.
So you think it's infrastructure that really causes this like cultural fitness difference?
I think there's a lot of moving pieces, but the more normalized it is to not be fit and to be bigger, the easier it is just to be comfortable doing it. And that is not to say that we should go around like pointing and making fun of people. I'm not saying that. But look, if it's normalized, yes, it's becoming a problem because it's become normalized. And obviously, there's researchers spending their whole world trying to understand why this is happening. And is it the estrogens? Is it the food? Is it the food sources? Is it whatever? All I know is that if you hang around fitter people, you know what you tend to do? Get fitter.
Yeah, dude. Environment is, I feel like environment is everything, dude. Like, if you put yourself in the right environment, man, it's really difficult. I think because I feel like it's like, man, if you're around a bunch of negative people, then they're going to like not reward you for being positive. But if you are around a bunch of positive people, they're not going to reward you for being negative.
Yeah.
So it's all about like find a place, a community or an environment to go into on a regular basis that just is the thing you're trying to become. And then just by you want them to praise you for your actions, you will start to do those things. You know what I mean?
It's funny. You said you're the fit friend. Like you've got friends that you make uncomfortable just by taking your shirt off.
Yeah.
It's like, motherfucker, put your shirt on. Like we don't want to feel bad. And
Right.
they say it jokingly, but they're literally feeling it. And that's not the intent of doing it. But it does point out like, yeah, look, if everybody was fitter, I bet you it would be easier for people to make decisions. Like it blew my mind. The first time I went to the grocery store in West Virginia, I was like, wait, there's a diabetes aisle here.
Yeah.
Just an aisle for diabetes?
Oh, that's interesting.
And it blew my mind because I'd never seen that before.
Guys, you don't want to have the diabetes aisle at your local grocery store.
Yeah, if you need a diabetes aisle in the grocery store, it's the wrong state.
And I want to piggyback off this, but I do want your opinion on Ozempic. Because I've got an opinion on it, but I want to know what your thoughts are on this. Because like I've gotten some blowback on my opinion, but we'll see where your thoughts are. But before we get to that, to kind of follow up on like what makes a client win, like what in your experience have you found that makes clients fail or fall off or stop and become kind of I'm done with this?
I think if they get bored, to be honest, like that's fairly generic and non-specific of an answer, but like if they're not enjoying the session, and it's just what you said, how do I get them excited to come to that session and feel like every session is a win, every session is enjoyable? I think that the gym is an activity. I think it's the same at this point. I think it's roughly the same, or it should be the same as, hey, I'm going to go play my basketball game. I'm going to go take my hike with my buddy. If the gym is like that, then you look forward to doing it. I think that the gym time of a day should be one of the best things of your day that you look forward to, right? So we don't need to make it this like badge of honor of kicking the shit out of somebody and like, et cetera. So it should be really enjoyable. So if they are not enjoying it, I think that's the easiest way to not succeed. Because over a long enough period of time, even if it's suboptimal, if they're doing it long enough, unless they're actively undoing it at home, which is regular, then they will win. So the other thing is this: we can do everything right in the gym. If we don't touch other aspects of their lifestyle, they will not make progress from the aesthetics standpoint. Like I told people very matter-of-factly, if you come to me 2 days a week or more, I will get you fitter and stronger, more endurance. But it doesn't mean you will have any changes with your physique. It doesn't mean that you'll have any other changes. You'll probably sleep better. Other than that, and you'll get healthier, but there won't be visual stuff. In order to do that, we need to look at some of these other lifestyles. And I would have this picture of a gearbox, and there was multiple gears. It was gym, diet, sleep, lifestyle, and then in the middle, social. And I was like, if we only address one gear, but these other gears are broken, this whole mechanism can't turn. So we need to have all these things, and that can be really overwhelming for somebody right out of the gate, right? So I don't have that conversation immediately with people, because I'm like, look, if you're taking a step, if you're going from nothing, coming to me one day a week is a win. Let me have that. Let me have that win, but I need to nudge you. If I can nudge you, and it's always it's a delicate balance of like, am I nudging too far that I become overwhelming and then they give up? Am I not doing anything and now they don't make any gains, so they give up, right? Like it's a tough one. It's a tough one, and it's why we always have these discussions. And there's so many schools and so many different options because different things resonate for people, and to make that even more curious at different points in their life.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I have this thought that like there's maybe like bad expectations like that are set, like unrealistic expectations that are set and not met. Even though I don't think anyone thinks it's going to be easy to lose weight, I don't think like enough people say, hey, this is going to be hard. You can do it, but this is going to be hard and it's going to take a long time. And I have a bit on this for anybody who like listens in, but it's basically like, you know this guy. Do you know Alex Hormozy? Mm-hmm. So yeah, he's like the fitness business dude, influencer online. He's got this bit on the in one of his books, he talks about the fitness, not the fitness equation, but it's the value equation, how you bring value. And basically, and if I'm going to say this right, basically it's like dream goal times perceived likelihood of achievement divided by effort and sacrifice and time delay. So basically the idea is it's like, so what you look at as valuable in fitness is this is what you want to buy, right? I want my dream body times basically perceived likelihood of achievement guaranteed divided by time delay, let's say 30 days, and let's say effort and sacrifice 0. That's very valuable. If you could get that, you'd get your hands on it immediately, Ozempic. So then you've got guys like me and you who are like, hey, let's give you our value equation, yeah. Which is dream body, let's say healthy body. Let's be realistic here. Yep. times perceived likelihood of achievement. Well, maybe if you do everything you needed to get done, divided by time delay, very long. Let's say the rest of your life, times effort and sacrifice, a whole fuck ton of effort and sacrifice. So then I tell you that and you're like, well, fuck you, bub. And then you're like, okay, well, how can I sell fitness to human beings when you've got people like Ozempic saying, hey, instead of doing that fitness thing, why don't you just inject this? This is where I now want what you think about what I just said / the whole Ozempic thing. And is this useful? Go ahead.
Ozempic?
I gave a whole bunch to you.
So Ozempic, and I should say, I haven't looked into it a ton, right? It's just not interesting to me singularly. And I think one of my understandings is that in addition to losing fat, that you will probably also lose muscle, and a not insignificant amount of muscle. If that's the case, then I think at the exclusion of making sure someone is force feeding themselves protein and doing strength training, that it would be problematic, because maybe it ends up looking like the biggest loser equations, where if you do it for a period of time, more than likely you almost always have to be on it because you just tank your own metabolic output, right? You lose fat, sure, but you also lose muscle. That's not good for function. That's not good for healthy living. If you get off it and you start eating irregularly, unhealthily, whatever, now you don't have the lean tissue to burn stuff. I know that's not a perfect way to say it, but like kind of. So you'll probably gain fat even faster than you ever had before. So I think it's one of those, it's not the same, but kind of the same as like getting on T. If you get on T, you're kind of going to be on T. Like that's what you do now. And that's not to make a value decision of who gets on it. That's always going to be somebody's personal decision. I understand why somebody might do it, but I also would be like, yo, I don't really want to be on that forever. And so Ozempic seems like maybe that's the case. It's also, I don't know how long it's been around, but it certainly hasn't been being used at this amount for very long.
I saw maybe it was about, I think it was about, don't quote me on this, but I think it was only about 3 or 4 weeks ago that the FDA, it would have been a little bit longer, but that the FDA finally like officially approved it as a weight loss drug.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just a money thing, but
kind of wild, right?
Wouldn't surprise me if it's just a money thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I feel ill-equipped to talk about it because I haven't looked into it. I don't care if someone wants to cheat and take a shortcut.
Yeah.
But oftentimes there's another price physiologically that comes along for that benefit. That's why there's side effects on like everything.
Everything, yeah.
So I don't know what it is. Maybe they don't know what it is. Maybe science eventually gets good enough that we can just all have a pill or a syringe and be looking jacked. I don't know. But until then,
Yeah, that's wild. In my mind, so I'm totally 100% against doing any of that shit because I think like if the idea is to make yourself better and improve your life, like this is not going to be the answer because of all of the shit that follows it up, you know?
You know what? I said, because it sounds like maybe, I don't think it sounds like I would be all for it, but I said the number one thing that I try to get for people is just leanness, right? Unless they had a very specific cliff I want to dunk. Well, for them, it's dunking. Or I want to lift this kettlebell with this amount. Okay, for them, it's that. It's a performance metric. And I'm fortunate I attract performance clients along with kettlebells and dunking because of who I am, right? Like, that's who, they're like, oh, you can still dunk? That doesn't make any sense. Maybe you can help me. And I'm like, there's no helping you. But when I was in my gyms that had a bunch of clients coming through, it was just to get leaner. But getting leaner gave them the health effects. I don't know if Ozempic has the same thing. If you get lighter and lose fat, yes, I imagine there's some health benefits there, but it doesn't also come with the health benefits of building muscle while you do it, or the energy exertion through cardiorespiratory training while you do it. Does it improve your sleep? Does it maybe help sync up your circadian rhythm? Does it improve it certainly won't improve your relationships with the community that you're working out at. So getting lean is a goal, yes, but the route in which you get there is certainly quite a bit different with the Ozempic. And again, I'm not trying to be like a judgment thing, because if someone's had a hell of a time not being able to accomplish it with the gym and diet aspect, I guess go for it, because maybe that gets them momentum, and then they find the gym, and then they get into it, at which point I'm cool with it. Hormozi, right? He got a lot of people were killing him, didn't matter to him, over his 6-week challenge.
Yeah.
Right? People are like, challenges are stupid because you'll just keep doing it. I'm like, you know how many people needed that momentum to get going? It works. Yes, it doesn't work for everybody, but show me one thing that does.
Right, 100%. I agree with that. Also, I'm a person who's like, I won't tell you that your life is going to be totally transformed in 30 days, but I think that a 30-day challenge is great in bringing new perspective to you, like new understanding, learning new things, and it can give you the idea, at least, of what this thing can bring you. Like a lot of, like, you know, the guy First Forum, the Andy Frisella dude who does like the
75 hard.
The 75 hard. So many people give such shit to that because it's like really kind of a bunch of crazy things that are kind of, let's say, unrealistic in a short period of time. But what that really does is just teach you like, hey, you can get it all done, but you are going to have to sit down and actually plan it out. And you're going to have to know, when am I going to the gym? Where am I going? I'm going to have to prepare for it, be intentional, you're going to have to be prepared, really, is the gig, which is having an actual plan. So the utility of that 75 days is actually, like, it goes far past like what it can do for you physically, you know, it goes what you can do mentally and what you can do maybe even in your career. I mean, that can help you in so many areas, because the only way to achieve the 75 hard is to have discipline and create structure in your life where nobody else can create it. And I think that's where a lot of the issue is like, how hard is it to work out every day? Isn't even just the physical aspect. It's also, I have to have that shit planned, because I have to make sure I'm getting my laundry done. I have to make sure that I have my bag packed and bring get to work because I got to come home. All of these things are going to be a part of the journey. So those things are kind of the thing you have to actually improve on. So in any case, long story short, I do 100%. I don't think that it's bad. The argument that I get from like the Ozempic thing is that like you've got somebody who is, let's say, like 50 to 100 pounds overweight, and if they can take this Ozempic, they can basically ensure that they're going to lose 15% of their body weight. And that will take like we talked about, the weight on the joints and the hips and all that. I mean, then they could get in the gym and actually work out. Look, I mean, like to your point, if that actually gets you in and you actually start doing that, good to go. Like, I definitely think there's definitely something to be said there. Now, if you're like 25 pounds overweight or 30 pounds overweight and you're a Gen Pop person who's like in their 20s or 30s, you probably don't need it. So there's definitely cases that I would be like, okay, because it really is difficult for obese people to get going. I just think that there's, like you said, there's a lot of other things that get hurt that, like, okay, now you're in the gym working out, but you're so tired, your stomach hurts, you're nauseous when you start working out because you're taking the drug.
Yeah.
So that kind of hurts your gym experience,
Yeah. Yes, indeed. It's I'm not mad I don't have my gym while this has come on, because I wouldn't want to have this conversation all the time.
Oh, right, dude. It's freaking, it's real, man. It's definitely real. So awesome, dude. So let's move on to the next question here, and it's going to kind of fall back into so variety. In that we talked a lot about this in the a little bit earlier on, but I kind of want to just kind of dive into it a little bit more. When you were talking about variety in training, what's the utility of variety, and why do you implement it? How do you implement it into your workouts with your clients?
So there's two reasons that variety is important to me. Variety as important for longevity of my clients' enjoyment is important, because if they only did a barbell deadlift in a conventional stance for 52 weeks, unless they're planning on competing, very, very few clients that I've ever had, or even trainers that I've ever known, are that driven by small percentage improvements in pounds lifted in a singular lift, or even 10 lifts. And I think that by having more variety, regular variety, it doesn't mean every set or every workout. It just means having enough. And this it shouldn't be contentious, right? Like, I think most people, what do you guys run, a 4 to 6 week plan?
Oh, here it's like month to month. It's kind of like it basically,
it's evolving.
AGS, it's just evolving. It's subscription based. We don't do like fixed like 6 week programs or anything like that.
So we did every 3 weeks at Fitwall, and that allowed enough time for people to get better, to improve neuromuscular efficiency, which allows them to actually push heavier weights, and that allows them to have enough overload to actually drive physical change, right? So I need enough variety for the mental piece of it. That's the enjoyment, longevity factor from a practical, logistical situation. From a better mover situation is, I want people to have more options on what they can do. And I'll see this from my fitness or trainer of trainers viewpoint pretty regularly, because I'll have trainers come in that are hardstyle kettlebellists that cannot do anything laterally. I get CrossFitters, very fit individuals, but ask them to side shuffle and they fall to pieces. Ask them to rotate or pivot on a foot. They can't do it because they've done such a small amount of variety that they cannot figure out movement puzzles. And so I think that's not an awesome place to be. I think that might be similar to someone that has an injury that limits what they can do. Because if you only have a couple of options, you try to solve problems the wrong way, because you don't have more ability. You don't have much movement literacy, so to speak. So by having enough variety to keep people, part of the longevity is, if I change it every 3 to 6 weeks, something, maybe not the whole workout, but parts of the workout, that also means they can have non-scale and non-load victories. Hey, I can do this thing now without falling over. Like we got that all the time. I had a rule: a third of our exercises were ambitious, so that when people figured out how to do it, they were like, "This is awesome! I can do this thing now." I'm like, "Great! All new workouts next week. You suck again."
Let's go.
And it's just this constant like, "Oh, here's a win. Here's a win. Here's a win," because my group fitness clientele, which is different than the one-on-ones and semi-privates, but the group fitness, it's difficult to get them to push harder and heavier. And in a fast-moving group class, sometimes it's not even like a good idea to have them pushing that much harder or heavier. And so how do I have other wins? Well, this is one way. That also made it, if you have regular variety, the other thing that happens, you get better at learning new stuff if you are consistently learning new stuff. So the ability to motor learn, motor skill acquisition is actually a trainable quality over a long enough time. So those are kind of the reasons why I think having regular on-purpose variety is important. I steal this analogy from Rafe Kelly, who stole it from Jill Miller, both awesome educators in fitness. Jill, I think it was Jill Miller. Shit, it might have been somebody else. Damn it, I'm gonna feel bad now. But anyway, she talks about the callus on your hand, right? If you only lift kettlebells, it sits in your hand in one particular way. And then if you go and do a high rep workout with a barbell, you might rip the callus. So even though you've got a developed callus, because the callus is a thickening, hardening, toughening, robustifying of the skin based on the input from the kettlebell, right? So that's the adaptation. The barbell is a slightly different adaptation. It's a handle, roughly the same shape, size, but it's just a little bit different. And when it imparts, you're not ready for it, and it rips. And it's not the callus where it ripped, it's right adjacent with this new stimulus. And so it's an imperfect example, and it's a nice one that you can point out and be like, see, this is why we cross-train, this is why you do other stuff, because otherwise you're going to tear a muscle or whatever. And that's too embellishing of what I'm saying, but it's interesting to think about and kind of seems to make sense and jive with all the sport athletes. Like, oh, you're over specializing and we see increased injury. If you only do, there's enough evidence at this point to say that, yeah, you need to have variety over your time. So those are the reasons for having variety.
So like with that, do you ever get, so like, let's say you've got maces. I love steel maces. I got the maces over there. I think that the hard part about implementing them is it's almost like giving a person a new skill to learn. With different types of equipment, different types of functional stuff, like, kettlebells is almost like a skill to learn. Benefits are there, but you've got to almost teach them the skill of the movement. Would you agree with that, or do you think
100%? And so I've actually got this. My old business was built on my progression model, the BA. So I'll say it here. First, you be able. That's basics. That's a sagittal, bilaterally loaded deadlift. Then we be athletic. Good English and everything. We be athletic.
That.
No, you be athletic.
Yeah.
And so the difference of be able to be athletic is we have more shit to manage. If I pick it up with one hand versus two, as soon as it leaves the floor, now my trunk, if I relax, would rotate and side bend. So I'm managing more stuff. To me, that's more athletic. The biggest challenge with the term athletic is people immediately think basketball player or athlete. And I just mean demands on the system. So we scale to there, and the ultimate expression is be adaptable, right? Like the adaptable shoulder strength that I had to exhibit over this last couple of days is, can I hold 4x8 sheets of thick plywood overhead while my father-in-law is screwing them into the ceiling of the garage to make our garage gym insulated because it's cold here in St. Louis. And I'm holding this by myself, overhead, max reach on my tippy toes, and I'm going, this is a good thing I'm in shape, because I would absolutely not be able to do this if I was not in shape. And that's adapting the things that I did. Another way of adapting is I can show up to a different gym, a different workout, and be successful. I can start taking up other sports and pick it up relatively quickly because I've laid this framework of be able, be athletic, and finally I can be adaptable. And the cool thing about like mace bells and kettlebells and things that are dynamically moving is you are adapting to that moving load every single repetition. So you have variety within the set. It's subtle. That's called variability. And I think that's just the most dynamic way to ultimately train somebody. As far as how we layer it into our client's routine, first we make them be able, so we have limited exercise selection until we build up what we find to be a good amount of a base level of aptitude, strength, conditioning, whatever you want to call it. They need to own that level before we start progressing. So this isn't unique to me. Like, I'm not the only person that's ever come up with this. This is just how I label it. And I think it labels it in a nice way to say, oh yeah, this is why we would do this. Another example or a related talking point is the idea of block practice versus varied practice or random, right? So block practice is you do the same thing, sets and reps, same tool, same setup. That is how you get better at one thing faster. But to get better at a bunch of things over enough period of time, you actually do varied. And so the way this would work is at the beginning, you're doing less total stuff to get better and mastery. But then you get to a point where you start to introduce more things. Ironically, if you ever want to be a specialist, then you reduce the amount of things you do again and you specialize. But most people live on the top of that inverse U curve where it's like, do a bunch of stuff regularly because that's where we probably live our life.
100%. And so just, I don't know if there's really an answer to this, but because I agree with everything that you just said. The trouble that I run into is like, to teach somebody who's, let's say I want to teach kettlebell. No chance I'm going to teach kettlebell the way that you teach kettlebell. Say I want to teach rec bags, how to use a rec bag. I'm not going to teach a rec bag how somebody else specializes in rec bag as a trainer. So usually it's hard to incorporate that all in one program because your trainer just isn't specialized in every single thing. How do you combat that? Do you combat that in any way? Like, or do you just recommend your clients like go to different specialists so that they can get like training in different types of things? Or should you kind of like put your hand in each pot, just a little bit, be dangerous in every like different skill to teach?
I think it's ideal to start adding tools to your toolbox, but it is not realistic necessarily.
I'm sorry, 1 second. That's going to mess with the audio.
Heater?
I gotta turn everything off so that the audio is clean. Okay, in any case,
Become Steven Spielberg.
yeah, I know. Look, it's like it's a nightmare, dude. One day when I have the money to have a producer, because all this would be really expensive if I had a producer in here. I'm gonna be so fucking grateful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I'm gonna walk into a studio that's not just gonna be in my gym, and there's gonna be like a guy who knows like all the stuff. I'm gonna be able to sit down and just be able to focus like, just on because I gotta kind of look over to make sure that the audio is good, make sure that you're not too far away or you're getting close.
Right.
And, hopefully that's still going because I'm not back there.
Yep.
That's why I do 2 cameras, by the way.
Oh, that's fine.
Just in case one fucks off, you never know.
Yep.
It's happened. That's why I do it.
Yep.
So like, it's interesting. There's so much to it. But in any case, long story short, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just didn't want that to ruin the audio.
No sweat. That's great.
And yeah, man, we've been getting after it. It's 1:37, so we got about 20 minutes left. But yeah, man, in any case, good shit. Go ahead.
All right. So as far as do you go learn new drills for the purpose of including more variety? I don't think you need to worry about that. I think that would be optimal. That's your best bet. But that comes along with, now you need more tools. You have to invest more money in more tools. Do you have the space for more tools? How many people is that weird U-shaped new kettlebell thing that the Squat U guy came out with? How many people is that going to help? So I don't think more tools is the answer. But if going to different certs, events, education, types of training can make you think of new ways to use your existing stuff, then you can have endless variety. This is actually the best learning experience of my life is when I started at Fitwall, they had just body weight and this ladder device, elastic bands, and TRX. And they were like, this is what you have. I said, can I get some dumbbells? They said no. Can I get some kettlebells? They said no. This is what we have for overload. And I said, all right, well, I got to figure out how to get all the loading that I want into a body with these tools. And I did, and I figured it out, and it worked way better than I ever thought it would. And so what that did to me is unlock the idea, and this is obvious, but like load is load, force is force. All I need to do is apply load and force at different angles, and I can still get an overload. And so it's not tool dependent. Some tools make shit easier. That's it. Like they can make your job easier, but they're not mandatory.
Yeah, I think people highly underestimate like what they can do with just their body in like a maybe 6x6 foot space. You know what I mean? I always tell like when my clients go on vacation or they're going XYZ and they're like, what am I going to do? Like I'm traveling. I'm like, you don't like, and there's no gym. I'm like, you don't need a gym. You just need to do these particular things with your body. And if you have like a band even better. I mean, you can almost do endless stuff if you have a band with you. You put that right in your bag.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's why people pay us, because we know.
Right. That's exactly right. So, is there any specific way of, outside of like your process, is there any specific way that you should start training with kettlebells? Is there any specific, like most effective way to start training with kettlebells? And like, when should you put them in? Can you start like novice?
Now, I think a novice is good to go, but there's two things that will get blasted on people right out of the gate. One is your wrists, not the wrist joint. That should never be an issue with kettlebells. It's literally the steel bell is sitting on your not steel wrist, and so you will bruise. Even if you're not doing cleans or snatches or dynamic stuff, just the bell, even if it's just 20 pounds, if it's resting on your wrist for 3 sets of 10 presses, you may feel tender the next day. That's normal. That's a lot more pressure onto that no fat area, and it's going to be sensitive. So I think that if you're a gym and you use kettlebells regularly, I would advise you to get on Amazon and order a bunch of cheap-ass wristbands, because even just a teeny tiny little wristband does a lot of good in keeping that bruise out of there. It doesn't change the dynamic of the loading. It doesn't change anything. It just makes them more comfortable. If they're more comfortable, they're more likely to do it more. So being cognizant with kettlebells that there will be some wrist bruising discomfort, and then taking steps to mitigate that is huge. So wristband is one, but the other is this. You can, instead of having a kettlebell clean position where normally it's resting on the outside of your wrist, you can just do it what I call a palm clean, where if my left hand is on the handle, the bottom of the bell, the side of the bottom of the bell, the cannonball piece is resting in my right hand. And that means I've got no metal contacting my wrist, but I still have the offloading of the kettlebell off my midline, so I get the same benefits as I punch the mic, as I get the same benefits of the offset position without the discomfort, or very similar benefits. So that's number one, is just the wrist stuff. Number two is your hamstrings are going to get annihilated. So the first few times you do it, because even if you're doing RDLs and hamstring curls, those are not the same as a fast stretch into a lengthened hamstring position with a fast concentric recoil. That will produce a unique soreness that they're not ready for. So I think that it's useful to include anterior loaded good morning. So you hold the kettlebell or sandbag or dumbbell, whatever, at about your sternum height, and you just go through relatively high cadence good mornings to get that higher rep range, stretch, shortening, lengthened hamstring specific overload, so that the first time they do kettlebell swings or cleans or snatches, which are all typically going to be hingy, it doesn't annihilate them. Because if it annihilates them and they're not a fitness person, they're more likely to be like, I don't want to do that.
I was going to say, is there anybody that you would say shouldn't do kettlebell?
I would be reticent to throw kettlebell training at somebody with a very tender, sore low back for the very beginning, because I need to build trust with them that I can train around that sore back with this thing that looks like it's bending over. So the problem is this: I can like a kettlebell swing is actually arguably very good for people with low back stuff, because it trains the low back to be an endurance stabilizer within a hinge pattern with speed. That's awesome. Like if you can do that, it probably will help their back. The problem is if they've got a preconceived idea that they got a bad back, when they look at that position, they go, that's bad for my back. And then if that's in their head and they go to do it, they're going to enter into the movement very apprehensively, tight, stiff, and they're not going to do it well. And they're kind of self-sabotaging the drill, and they might make their back hurt because they're overly tight. So I need to gain their trust. I need to build their strength in a very similar position without the speed, without the complexity, and eventually get there. Right there. While I like the kettlebell, ironically, I oftentimes don't utilize it with my regular clients because of the wrists, because of the grip, because of et cetera. Like I teach a kettlebell cert, and on the first page, it says, this is what it's really good for, here's what it's great for, and here's what it's not that awesome at.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're strong, eventually you need to have trap bars and barbells and other things because the damn kettlebell, they get so unruly in size that you can't go any heavier.
Yeah, and that's what basically I was gonna say was like why kettlebell over other functional equipment?
The main reason is that you can load at different angles. So when you get that swinging effect because of the handle that you can now swing it sideways, you can swing it back, you can change hands with it. You can load much more dynamically based on the shape. You can't really do that with a dumbbell. You can't do it with a barbell. You can in a landmine to a certain degree. So landmines are right there with kettlebells for me. But the reason I like those different force vectors, and again, same thing with the landmine, and it gets a little cute like sport specific-y, but when I'm resisting a force that is not just accentuated gravity, that's what a barbell on your back or holding dumbbells is. It's just you're squishing yourself down, right? So if you think about a lateral lunge, all right, I'm just squishing myself down, but when I stand up from a lateral lunge, I have to not just push down, I have to push sideways. And I have no resistance in the sideways force when I'm holding a dumbbell. But if I do a lateral lunge with a kettlebell swing, now the kettlebell is coming down and to the side. So I'm actually more closely resembling the force vector of the movement. The way that my foot interacts with the ground is different, and the way that my foot interacting with the ground changes how I recruit muscles up chain. I'm not even saying it's better. I'm just saying it's different. And if I think variety is important, then I think that's important. If I think that my ability as an athlete that plays either pickleball or tennis or volleyball or basketball or anything where I have to change direction, I need to be able to coordinate my center of mass over these points of contacts with different shin angle positions and management of my mass over those points of contact. And I can't do that with just accentuated gravity. And if I only train accentuated gravity, I'm sending a really big, strong signal that this is how I accomplish a task that looks like this. And if I never do it another way, I might try to use that strategy in an inappropriate way. So, example, if let's say I'm doing lateral lunges, step ups, forward lunges, etc., and it's only with barbell on my back or holding dumbbells. When I get to the pickleball court, I might step sideways and I step in exactly the same way I've been training with the dumbbell, but that is a piss poor position for me to create lateral drive because I was loading it with dumbbells. My brain says this is how I do that thing. I might actually be more apt for injury at that point because I'm using now a poor strategy that I've solidified in the gym. And that is not to say you shouldn't do dumbbell, barbell loaded. It's just like, hey, it gives to your question, why the kettlebell? Well, it lets us train different angles, different positions that might have more benefit from a cutesy sport specific. That's not the goal. The goal is the variety itself.
Yeah, 100%. And man, we talked a lot about why, and we're running out of time here. But I want to know what's Clifton's why. Why do you train people still to this day? Why are you 21 years into it? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What's your why, man?
I find it interesting. It's just like the whole thing is curious to me. I know I got into it because I wanted the dunk. Then I kind of got to be like, ooh, this is interesting. I can do X, Y, Z in order to have this output. I'm less interested in the psychology and emotional aspects, right? It's just, it's way too complex for me, and I'm too much of a dick to really care about everybody. Like I got my own kids, I got my wife, I got enough things in my small circle to care about. I say it mostly facetiously because when I do have clients, like you get invested in your clients.
Yeah.
But the goal is to be good at what I do. To be good at what I do, I need to help them get to where they go. In order to help them get to where they go, you have to have these conversations about all those gears of the things that drive change. That's why you created an awesome app and you have those check-ins with people. That's awesome. But the people that just, if the trainers that just go, I can't control what they do outside of here, they're gonna go away, because it doesn't matter how good your workout is. It ain't helping them if you can't touch their entire life.
It's so true. Dude, behavior changes is, I mean, getting somebody to improve themselves physiologically. I mean, think about like losing, what fascinates me is somebody comes in here and they can change what they are. They can take physiologically, they can take mass off their bodies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they can like increase their strength, and like, what the heck does that even mean? And their ability to move their body in space. Like what, why, how? And so I'm always just so fascinated that you have the ability to where, like, just improve from where you are now. It's like, and how it gets done. There's no one way. There's like, I've been just trying to figure out how to help somebody, like one specific, what's the standard for improving you? There ain't one, man, as far as I'm concerned. Unless somebody has one, in which case I would love to have you on the podcast. Or Clifton, if you know the one way to make a person just improve, like, I'm down for the conversation, but it just seems like
ice bathing, I think, right? I'm kidding.
It's 15 minutes. Yeah. 15 minutes every morning.
That's it. That's the one thing.
That's awesome. Do you do it?
And you do like that? No. I used to. I did in 2010.
Yeah.
Right? Like the paleo scene, it was huge.
Okay.
I used to get in an ice bath every hotel because you have ice machines. It was easy. I traveled with foot booties, a beanie, and gloves because I could get more of my body in and not hate my life right away. And nothing magic happened.
Oh my God.
And I took cold showers. I did this for a while, and now I like comfort.
Yeah, dude. What were the, just out of curiosity, man, what were the like crazy fitness things back like 20 years ago when you started compared to now?
It's hard for me to say that because 20 years ago I wasn't around
like in
everything.
Okay.
Right? So I'm like very small, but that's like almost the birth of the functional fitness trend. Like we had Paul Chek standing on his physio ball. We had Brady Anderson of the Orioles doing physio ball barbell back squats. A lot of bands came in. It's where we probably took some of the functional ideas a little too far, and that's where it started to get like, that's more circusy than anything. But it's hard for me to say because I was just getting into it.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, because nowadays you've got all sorts of stuff popping up, like the ice bath. That's massive right now. But I think there's probably more use for your mental side of things than your recovery. And actually, I believe that the science shows that it's like the least effective way to recover your body is to do like an ice bath. Even though I did it after every single football game, football practice when I was in college. And in any case, I did that, and I did a lot of rolling as well. And people talk about rolling, but I think rolling is really effective recovery method. But in any case, I also had like some guys on here who own a place. Have you ever heard of? I'm not gonna forget it. Celsius STL Cryo.
No, but that's here in St. Louis?
It's here in St. Louis. Basically, you know what cryotherapy is?
Oh, yeah.
It's like just basically 3 minutes of getting real cold. So I had him on the podcast, and it was a good podcast because I was hammering them, just see what kind of science is behind it and stuff. And they offered me to go and check it out. And I'm like, I don't know if this is much different than getting in an ice bath. Maybe it's more accessible, but the machines cost like $150,000. So I don't think it's as accessible, actually.
My only opinion on cold stuff is this. There's enough cultures over enough period of time that have found benefits. And whether the exact science says it, like which exact science, because at this point we have a study for any position that we could ever want.
Right.
So I do believe that there's something to it, even if it's just as little as I accomplished something today and that sets me in the right direction. I just don't want to be uncomfortable. I am soft.
I feel that. And that's, yeah, you're like I said, like earlier, what is it? A placebo works 60% of the time?
Every time.
Every time, which is hilarious. That just blows my mind. That actually blows my mind that placebo works at all ever, right? Like,
It's really crazy.
you know what I'm saying? So that's wild. Dude, in any case, man, I got one more question for you. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast, dude. This was an awesome conversation.
I appreciate it.
Good fun. I asked this question to everybody to finish the podcast out. So once this podcast is the biggest podcast in the world for fitness, I'm just kidding. But let's say you had the ear of every single person on the planet right now. Like every person in the world could hear your message. What would it be?
Ooh, man, that's a big, grandiose question. The joke side of me says, don't be soft, be a man, work out, no excuses. But since I have 2 kids, I understand the opposite side of that better now. I'm glad I never said that to a client when I didn't have children. I think that honestly, and this is the message that I try to get across, and it's just be patient. Like it's not particularly useful, but it is correct, right? You have to be patient. You have to be patient to develop the interest in it. You have to be patient for the results to come. You have to be patient from how much heavier you can go. It's probably the most important thing that we can have. If you're not patient, you get frustrated, you get upset, you quit. So be patient.
Be patient. Well said, man. And I definitely agree. I think patience is like it's like the number one thing that people don't have. You know, like it's like, for example, sitting down, doing yoga. I do yoga a bunch, and I used to have instructor come in every weekend and do it till my last one left, and I just haven't replaced her yet. But in any case, I've had multiple yoga instructors come in, and I do a lot of meditation as well. I ask yoga instructors specifically, what is the hardest part of a yoga session or yoga class for the classmates, the people who are participating, and they always say the shavasana at the end. It's like you can tell they just want it to be over. And then you say, hey, somebody seems like their mind is completely just filled with a bunch of crazy stuff that's going on, and they almost can't like focus in on one thing, and they've got a lot happening, and they're just like, man, and their shoulders are buried into their ears. And you're like, hey, you should do yoga. Like that would be so good for you. And they're like, I can't do yoga, man, because I just can't sit still for a long time. And it's like, that's the benefit. The benefit is that it's really trying to find patience with yourself to sit down and like pay attention to that thing. Yeah, I think that patience is extremely important. I think it's probably the number one thing that could benefit you moving forward.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Well said. Do you have anything else for anybody coming in?
No. If you guys want to see shenanigans, my Instagram is full of them. All sorts of shenanigans.
I love that.
And that's just, where I do my stuff.
Where can they find you?
At Clifton Harski.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks again, man, for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for coming in, watching the podcast, listening to the podcast. If you like the podcast, like, subscribe, send it to your friend. Don't come in and listen. Go follow Clifton. And thank you for coming on, man. And thank you so much again, dude. I appreciate your time, guys. And always remember, think big, live better, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.